Thank you for joining the Broadway Drumming 101 podcast with your host, Clayton Craddock. If you like what you hear on the show, subscribe to the Broadway Drumming 101 newsletter at broadwaydrumming101.substack.com. That's Substack, substack.com. The Broadway Drumming 101 newsletter is your one-stop shop for everything you'll need to know about playing drums for Broadway musicals. When you subscribe to the newsletter, you'll learn about what it takes to be a successful pit musician with content delivered directly to your email inbox 2 to 3 times a week. For $5 a month or $50 a year, you'll have a backstage pass to the world of a Broadway drummer playing on a hit show. As a paying subscriber, you'll receive behind-the-scenes access to the life of a musician who makes a living on Broadway. You'll also be able to read every post, not just those occasional free ones. You'll get access to all newsletter issues in the archives and have an ability to participate in subscriber-only comments and events. If you become a founding member for a gift of only $75, you'll receive discounted private drum lessons, an opportunity to watch Clayton play in the pit of his show, and a 25% discount on future promotional products. If you'd like to make a direct contribution to the production of this show, you can reach us at Venmo at Clayton-Craddock, Cash App at Syncopated, that's CINCOPATED, or PayPal at Clayton Craddock. Any amount of support will be appreciated. Thank you for listening.
Mel Rodman calls me up. I get a phone call. Now, Mel Rodman was a pretty, he was, the John Miller or the Mike Keller of his day. He was a contractor. So he calls me up, and I'll never forget. It's like, "Hi, Paul, this is Mel Rodman. I don't know you, but Stanley Lebowski asked me to call you for Cats," who I met. "Hi, Stanley. Hello, Paul." And I played for 2 weeks. That goes back to you never know who's going to be listening to you. I worked for 7 years because of those 2 weeks. The first thing was, it's like, "Oh, Paul, we want to do a recording of a tune of Stanley's." And it was me, Dave Katzenberg, the bass player who did the show. And I'm not sure if Ethan Fine, the guitarist, did it. But basically, that was my audition. I didn't know that was an audition, but I basically wanted to see if I was going to fuck up the session or not and not play well. So, went downhill from there. I didn't fuck it up. And then 7 years, man, of Cats. 7 years of Cats.
Did you know anything about the show? Did you think it was,
Nope.
Really?
Nope. Other than, it was big, this was a bigger deal than Evita. Evita had all this press coming into it.
Now, why was Cats bigger than Evita?
I don't know.
Because it was a unique.
I guess people like like animals more than dictators. I don't know. Because of the hype. Look at all these men and women in these slinky costumes and everything. Now, I didn't see the movie. Did you see the movie?
Yes, I did. The movie made more sense to me than the show.
Okay.
I kind of understood what it was kind of all about.
Okay. Yeah, the show, unless it's like looking at modern art. When you have to read an explanation of what you're looking at, then it's like, okay. Or listening to avant-garde jazz. It's like, what?
Right.
I don't, the liner notes. It's like, okay. I don't need to read the liner notes to listen to Hank Jones. I understand what Hank Jones is doing,
So that was 1983?
82, October 82. A month that will live in infamy.
Well, before 82, you were asked to be part of the Modern Drummer Broadway Roundtable.
Yeah, that was during Evita.
Now, why did they pick? Do you know why they picked you four? The four of you?
Well, isn't it obvious? Because we were young drummers, I guess. I don't know. All of us were, I guess, around the same age, and we were all doing successful shows. I don't remember. All I remember is, I think once again, it was Gemignani saying, the Modern Drummer's going to call you up. I guess they called the publicity office. And he said, I want you to do it. And I said, all right.
And you all four were around a table, and
we were sitting at a table.
When I spoke to John recently, he's like, "Yeah, I think back then I was smoking a cigarette, wasn't I?" And I said,
"Yes, he was. Yes, he was. Yes, he was." And I remember Dorian, who I didn't know from Adam before then, and I never saw again after that day.
Wow.
Was basically the first question, what's the most important thing? Get there on time.
He
said something like that.
Yes,
and I thought, at the time, God, that's, trite. That's simplistic. It's like, no, it's not. And it's so true. You got to be there, then you go from there, but you got to be there.
Yep, it says this. What are the elements necessary to be a successful Broadway drummer? Dorian McGee, right? That's his name? Yes. He said, be at the gig on time. As far as being a successful drummer, as in any other business, being on time.
All right. Did I say Dorian Hayward? That's an actor, isn't it?
No, you said Dorian McGee. Also, I got to read this because I think I read this to John Redsecker. Dorian said, I consider myself the pulse of whatever show I play. Although conductors conduct, you can't hear anything but the time. You hear us. Depending on how you feel, the show can be great one night, or it can be, if you're tired or whatever, you can bring that into the pit, which I try not to do. Basically being aware. Also, people come in and pay $30 for top price tickets.
Right.
And I read that. I was like, $30?
Yeah.
God damn, $30 is what you'll pay for a bottle of water nowadays at a Broadway theater.
True,
oh man,
true.
That was so funny.
No, but that good. I mean, that's that's very similar to what many people have said to you.
Yes,
you're running the show. You have to be supportive of the conductor. You have to have the conductor believe you're on their side.
Yep.
That they understand, if they're doing something weird or what looks odd, you have to be able to interpret that. You have to be able to interpret that. I mean, I've been to some shows where as a sub and looked at the conductor and basically said to myself, oh my God, how am I going to do this? But this was later on where there was the Walkman or something where you could learn the show. I basically, most shows, I can't say most shows, every show I subbed at, I memorized, so that when I was playing, I'm looking right at the conductor, and say, I'm going with what I'm hearing or what the band is playing. I don't understand what he or she is doing, maybe, but I understand that that doesn't matter because I am giving them what they want. The as a sub, who said this? Probably most people. You don't want to be noticed. You at the end of the show, it's like, oh, X wasn't in tonight? You sounded great. I didn't even know he wasn't there.
That happened to me once.
Check. That's what you want.
When I was subbing at Motown, a trumpet player came in and he's like, he wanted to talk to Buddy. He's like, hey, Buddy. It's like, and then he saw me. And that's a compliment. I was like, oh, thank you. Yeah. I sounded like Buddy, good enough so that you thought it was him.
Yeah.
Mission accomplished.
I'm only laughing because I subbed for Buddy at Hello Dolly. The Hello Dolly. And that was like, I'd never really met him before.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, it's two different worlds. I mean, he's recording and touring and he's one of the gods, man. I don't know. Yes, he's been around forever.
Yes. And
still around, still playing, still working, still doing, amazing stuff. But, that was wild watching him play Hello Dolly.
Yeah. I didn't see him play that. I just know him playing the groove stuff. I don't know what it was like playing that.
He was grooving. He was grooving at Hello Dolly. I mean, he was playing the right. Oh yeah, he was playing the right stuff. Sure. I mean, a few things. I was like, I just to myself, I would say, I would never think of doing that in this tune. But it worked, and nobody was questioning it.
Right.
The music business is weird. Conductors, contractors, producers, stars.
Yes.
It can be weird.
Speaking of weird, let's go back to Cats again.
Oh yeah. Oh no, it's okay. I've almost worked my way out of all my deep dark feelings about it.
It was that show. I tell a story. When I came to New York in 1993, I was just eager to meet people, and I was walking in the Times Square area, and I saw this person with looked like a saxophone case on their back, and I was like, "Excuse me, my name is Clayton Craddock. I just moved to New York City. Just like to introduce myself and meet some musicians, and I wonder, what do you do?" He said, "Yeah, I work at Cats right here in the Winter Garden."
Okay.
I was like, "So what's that like being in a Broadway show?" He's like, "Oh man, you don't want to do this, man. It's like a job." I was like, "Oh, okay, thank you."
Yeah, it's a job.
I didn't want to do a goddamn job. I wanted to be a rock star, man. I didn't realize that you can have a job playing music that you can either you love it or you don't love it, but you can play music and be a musician and make money and get a pension and health insurance, stuff that you don't think about when you're 20 or 25 or I forgot 27, however old I was. But he kind of like scared me away from Broadway for like 7 years.
Well,
I didn't think about it until the year 2000 when I got a bus and truck tour and I started making money playing a show. I was like, wait a minute, this Broadway thing is kind of interesting. But you did that for 7 years straight, and then you went on to another show. Now you left that. Why? Why would you leave something so secure?
I had said to. I remember at one point in the first year or two, leaning over to Dave Katzenberg, who was right in front of me, the bass player, and saying, I got 5 years in me. I don't think I can do this more than 5 years. And at the end of the 7th year, I was kind of burnt out from it. I don't know. I remember I took a leave of absence for 3 months at one point, and I actually played in a percussion ensemble, but it was more a groove thing. I was playing congas and timbales and different things like that. And that was kind of a lot of fun. I remember coming back, and like the second day, I felt as heavy and depressed and weighted as I did beforehand. Yeah, I mean, there were some problems in the band, friction between certain players, and it wasn't helping me at all. I don't want to get into it more than that because it is still a loaded thing with me,
I hear
because I realize it now as an older musician that sometimes I just don't want to hear some young players not doing what I think is supposed to be done. It just could be an attitude thing. I don't know, but it's just, I realized, oh my God, this must have been so much of a problem to certain people back then. It's over. So I left I did Three Penny Opera with Sting. I did not just cut out the show, period. I left to do Three Penny Opera with Sting, which only lasted about 2.5 months. It opened and closed.
Wow.
It was weird. It was really weird. And it was with the Orchestra of St. Luke's. That was an orchestra that part of them did it. I guess it's like a 20-piece group in that ensemble for the show. But I played drum set. And so that closed New Year's Eve of like 1990, I think. Or the first day, 1989, whatever the hell it was. I remember going to a party at a bar, and there was a percussionist named Bob Ayers, who very active, played great timpanist, percussion, he played great. He had opened up a music rental business, drums and I guess rent the amps and all that stuff, but mostly percussion. And he had his shop was on 47th Street, 47th, between 9th and 10th or something like that. Like a 3 or 4 story building. They had the whole building with like just timpani, drum sets, cymbals, gongs, like everything you could imagine. And at that point, I was so fed up. I stopped playing for about a year and a half. I asked him at that night at that bar, do you need a truck driver or something like that? I basically worked as a truck driver for him for a year and a half.
Wow.
I would walk into sessions and people would, hey, Paul, how you doing? I said, great. Where do you want this timpani? Where do you want the timpani? I'd be bringing stuff in. That's where I met my wife, which if I was working, 6 days a week at the weird hours that we work, we would have never, gotten together. So she caught me at the wrong time, because then I started working again, and she really, unfortunately, was like, holy shit, when are you going to be around? Where are you? What are you doing, man? But she's my first wife and only wife, so we're still together.
Congratulations.
Yeah, 26-year-old daughter. I have a 26-year-old daughter.
Wow.
So I for a year and a half, basically, I'm not, I don't know if you picked up sticks. I was just like so fried from Cats, from like am I Paul Pizzuti the person? Am I Paul Pizzuti the drummer? How do they overlap? It was weird. It was a weird time, but it was a good time too to get some space. I have a friend, Julio Fernandez, who's the guitarist in Spyro Gyra. He's a local guy here. I've known him since we played in some groups together. He said, hey, Paul, we're doing, I'm playing the jam at the China Club on Wednesday nights. Do you want to do it? So I guess I shouldn't say I wasn't playing any drums during that year and a half, because at some point I started doing that, and that lasted a year. Wednesday nights starting at midnight, going to like 4 o'clock. And like, every fucking band in the world came to play in there, or people would come and sit in at the China Club. Saw some great drummers, saw some great groups. We play one set, and then, sometimes we play with other people, but, it was often groups would come up and play, So I'm doing that. I'm also working at a friend, one of the guys I was in that group with when I was a teenager. He started a piano company, basically a piano tuning, but piano, he would be two pianos. He also refinished pianos, did the whole piano, like a Steinway finish, a Bosendorfer finish, like just amazing stuff. And I worked with, he asked, oh, if you're not doing anything, I'll give you, like $5 an hour and we'll hang out all day, and you'll help me. So I did that for about a year before, during the day. And then sometimes I'd go to the China Club. So it was weird. It was with my wife or with my girlfriend at the time. Then I get a phone call from Ron Sell, who was a French horn player. He's passed away a while ago. He worked for Gemignani as a contractor. He would contract a lot of things. Assassins had run already, however it ran in its first iteration. I think it was off Broadway. I'm not sure. We're doing an album. Do you want to do it? And so I kind of jokingly, I didn't do it to him, but like, I guess I had a date book. I'm looking at my date book and it's like, it looks like the Great North in a whiteout, so it's like, yeah, I'm free, So I did the Assassins album, which I had no idea what the music was. I knew anything about it other than it was about presidential assassins, So I do that. So, Gemignani is like, how you doing? You stopped, everything okay. I say, everything's fine. Everything's fine. Then I get a phone call to do Crazy for You. That got me started again. Susan Stroman was the choreographer.
They pulled you back in. It's like
they pulled me back in.
Just can't leave.
The second coming, pole position, whatever.
So crazy. So you did Crazy for You, and that lasted for.
I think I left there before it closed. It was in the middle of the second year. A Christmas Carol started at whatever it is now. It was the Felt Forum back then. I can't remember the name of it, but it was one of those. It was kind of like a Radio City thing. It was like 90 shows over the course of a month or two. It was just really crazy. Now, I'm thinking, the show Big was coming in supposedly in springtime.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, you know what? Instead of, going back to Crazy for You for a month or so, I'm gonna quit it and take off and just relax for a while.
So
I said, I thought about it. I don't know if Jody and I just got married, I think. It's like, yeah, that'll be great. I'll be fine. Got money in the bank, it's fine. It's fine. Quit the show. Big gets pushed back 6 months. And we're pregnant. So I was subbing at Crazy for You, which was easy. I didn't have to learn it. I remember calling Ron Tierno and saying, Ron, if, I know you probably have a lot of subs, but if you need anyone, I'm around. And we laughed, okay, yeah. He said, I got, I'm covered, but, he calls me up, like, I think a couple of days later and said, are you free? He gives me a whole shitload of dates because people weren't free from when he did. So I started subbing at Cats again.
Ooh.
I subbed back at Cats.
What was that like?
Subbing.
Wait, go back. What was that like going?
What was that like?
Yeah, you're like, oh God, I got it. It's like going back to your ex-wife. You're like, if you had an ex-wife.
No, it wasn't quite that bad.
Okay.
Wasn't quite that bad. Right. It was, no, it wasn't, no matter what I went through in the 80s there, it was a different time period. It was fine. And I knew the show. I didn't have to think about it. I played it well, but I kind of played my show. Ron, I saw him play it.
Did the conductor give you notes?
No, nobody gave me any notes. Usually I'd be fired and they'd tell me after the fact that I wasn't called back because they didn't want me as a sub. That's happened a couple of times. And they said, well, we don't know. I said, I knew I was fired. You didn't have to tell me, So that's a funny thing too. So I'm subbing there and I subbed, Ray Marchico was doing How to Succeed with Matthew Broderick. He got me to sub for him. Oh, what else? I was subbing about 5 or 6 shows. I know that. 4 more shows other than I don't. Crazy for You and Cats don't count really because I knew them, But there was a bunch of other shows that I subbed at. Then Big opened and closed in 6 months. It didn't do well, Unfortunately, yeah.
Yikes.
It was. But so I don't know. Where are we? Like 96?
96, yes.
Yeah, I don't remember. I remember doing more subbing. I remember subbing at Jekyll and Hyde, which was kind of a wild show. Jim Saporito had the drum chair, and Randy Max, who has since passed away, was the timpanist. Randy Max was the timpanist in New Jersey Symphony. He was great guy. And Jim is a great drummer and a great percussionist. And he had to set up. There was a taiko drum, the big ass Japanese, over his head.
Wow.
That's the only place they could put it. There was one tune where he just played and he like wailed on the thing. And it was like, oh, this is fucking great, man. But you had to play orchestra bells, there was like, Hyde would like or Jekyll, whatever. You hear ba 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 ba. Like a bell tone. And I remember one time, my back is turned. You kind of seeing the conductor in a mirror, and I fucked it up completely. And I was like, "Oh, this is great, man. This is great." And you had to run. There were 3 or 4 steps where Randy was behind you, and you had to go up there and play concert bass drum, some Piatti, and other stuff up there. So it was back and forth and playing, and I played that for a while. I took over for Jim. He left to do Fosse, I think, a musical called Fosse. And Jim is a great musician. I learned a lot from him. I learned a lot from Ray, watching Ray play, watching Jim play. Then Gemignani's doing Paul calls me up for Kiss Me Kate. I guess it's in 98 or 99, something
99,
like that.
2000. Yeah, 99.
Yeah. It definitely went through 9/11. Was we stayed open a bit, another couple of months after that, But that was fun. That was a lot of fun. And Paul Gemignani, basically gave me most of my work. I mean, I've worked for other conductors, but he's the one who most often would call me for things. And over the past 10, 15 years, everything he did at the Roundabout, he did a lot of Roundabout productions that I always did. If not me, Larry Lelly. Now, Larry's somebody you should talk to.
Oh, yeah.
Larry's been around for a while. He's a great musician, conductor, conducts great, plays drums, plays percussion. Really good, really good. I remember meeting Larry vaguely. He remembers meeting me more than I remember meeting him. I think it was at Kiss Me Kate, but he could tell you about that. I don't remember. It was good. It was good. It wasn't anything negative, but well, I mean, looking back, look at Evita. Here's this multi-million-dollar production about to open, and they get a new drummer in 2 days before it opens. I mean, it's like things don't always go as planned. I think they thought, well, this other young guy we got, well, he can play the rock stuff. Yeah, he might have been able to, but he couldn't read very well. And then it's like, well, I'm just talking to the conductor and he believes everything I'm saying. I could have been a psychotic. Who knows who I was? And I go in and, I did it. I guess I did what I was supposed to do, So it can be, I mean, I think it's a lot less iffy these days. People either know each other more, or there's more of an online presence where you can see about someone's past, whereas, if you can find anything from me, I'd be amazed.
Yeah. It's not easy. Not easy.
No, it's not easy. Not easy. But I mean, there was one other time I wanted to talk about that. If I got any pride at all, it was at least doing that Evita thing and keeping the gig and not fucking up. And actually, I guess I did sight read the show, not at the show, but I did sight read it with the piano player. And then, next thing I know, I'm with the orchestra. I'm doing Gypsy with Patti Lupone. So she's doing the show on Broadway. It's the Tonys. And, the orchestra is up in a separate room. And, it's like, so I think we went in to do a rehearsal during the day. Everything's coming up roses, the big, ball buster tune, the crazy, crazy tune, Go back home. Come back in to New York, and it's at Radio City, and the orchestra's upstairs. So we play the tune. Everybody's happy, screaming. She's, the belter. I'm at Port Authority, getting on the bus back to Hoboken, and I see on my phone, right, and it's John Beal. John Beal is a legendary bass player. John has done everything. If you ever do a bass player podcast, or you could check, Richie Rosenzweig. You know Richie?
I don't think I know him. I know who he is.
Richie's doing the new company.
Okay.
He's doing the new company, and he's got a podcast called Big Noise from Planet Earth, where it's him talking to bass players. And John is the last bass player of this season that he talks to. John has an amazingly varied career, but he did the Tonys for like 30 plus years, in the orchestra. So I'm seeing it's John Beal.
Yes,
John,
I see that. Yeah.
How you doing? And John says, "Hey, Paul, you still in New York?" I mean, and he's like, I love John. It's like he's very calm. I said, "Yeah, I'm just getting on the bus." He said, "Oh, Ronnie's not feeling real well at the moment. Something he ate, I think. Can you come back and play the rest of the broadcast?" And I said, "Oh yeah, sure." So I get off the bus. I'm at 42nd and 8th, and I take a cab up there to 50th Street, the back of Radio City. And I'm going upstairs and I'm saying, what did I just say I'm going to do? So I get off at the 7th floor, and Ronnie Zito is outside. And I said, "Oh, great. He's okay. He doesn't need me." He's like, "Hey, Paul, man, I'm glad you're here. And it's like, okay. Okay. So I go in, and it's the whole fucking Tony orchestra. It's the whole big, Jim Pugh, Bob Milliken, Tony Cadlick. I mean, great, Lawrence Feldman. I mean, he's just like, the creme de la creme of New York recording, of world recording. And so I get behind the drums, and it's like, and Elliot Lawrence, this was when Elliot Lawrence was still alive. It was his orchestra. And, I mean, sometimes, I'd never worked with Elliot before. He was just happy that someone was there, that I guess wasn't going to get sick and fall over. And it's like, well, when the winners come up, here's the 5 tunes, and you got to pick, he'll start conducting, and then and it's like, okay. And these are the tunes we're going to do between, for the playoffs and play-ons. It's like, okay. Okay. And then it's like, okay, 10, 9, 8.
Oh my God.
Okay. And John said, I'll help you through it. Don't worry about it. And so half an hour goes by, and I played the Tony broadcast live.
Wow.
And the only thing I fucked up was Gypsy.
That's
because
funny.
It was like not an arrangement that, I was like reading it, but it was like slightly, I didn't fuck it up, but I was just like, oh, that's what I was supposed to play. It's like, so I thought that was like, well, okay, there'd be something, that I could put on my gravestone. Went back to the show the next day, and the sax player, or the next day or 2 days, whatever. And Adam Kolker was one of the reed players. Now, Adam's, plays, I saw him play a lot of jazz. I think I got one of his first CDs, where it was John Abercrombie and John E. Baer playing bass, and Paul Motion playing drums. And I think he told Motion, yeah, the drummer, like he just, went in and played the last half hour of sight read. And like Motion's, no, I can't do that, man. I couldn't do that. It's like, well, Paul, neither could this Paul. He just faked his way through it. But it was like playing to a track, to be perfectly honest. It was like, I was like playing to somebody's recording. The band sound, it was so easy. It was not terrifying because it was so easy to do. It just sounded so perfect that, I'm just playing along with a record here. That's what it sounded like. That's what playing at Hello Dolly sounded like, playing for Buddy. The band was so tight and sounded so good that it wasn't like all I did was go along for the ride, but it was like playing to this perfect track. It was like sometimes it's just great. Sometimes I remember looking after I went in to see the show finally, to sub for him. Mm-hmm. I remember listening, practicing it, and it wasn't that hard. It was like an old classic Broadway show. And it's just like, this is not, I didn't feel like any tumbling on my stomach or anything weird. It was like, this is fine. As long as I play with the bass player, the trumpets and the brass and the horn, it was just perfect.
Tell me about the transition from not having monitors to having the hot spots to having headphones to not having a click to shows always having a click mostly. Was it something that you just gravitated towards and just figured out, like, okay, I got to take this on. You got to do this next. Like when I talked to some drummers that were doing a lot of studio work in the 70s and the drum machine came out, they're like, oh man, either you adapt to it or you find a way around it,
right?
Or you do both. Right. What was your experience like with the monitoring system and how you adjusted to that, and also with shows doing mostly click tracks now?
Well, I would say the vast majority of the work I've done is without a click track on Broadway. Maybe that's because of the conductor I work with mostly. Paul Giamatti does not like the click track unless you have to absolutely have it in the show. If they need to double track some vocals while the dancers are singing and they can't sing full out. So likewise, if I had, well, for example, I've subbed at Aladdin. There's no click, but I have the headset on as loud as my ears can take it. Which I'm going to be going to Costco soon to get my hearing aids. But is there a click? Aladdin? I don't think so. Dolly, I had the headset on, and I think I had like my Union earbuds in, and then the headset over that, and just cranked it up loud, was then I could hear everything clearly. Yeah, I just haven't done. I'm being honest. I haven't done a lot of shows with click tracks, and that's been the way my career has gone, and so I do know. One example. When I did the show called The Frogs at Lincoln Center, and it's in the stage is the orchestra is kind of like in a horseshoe around the stage, and once again, it's Paul Giamatti, and the sound was putting in these monitors, around the horseshoe. And he's like, well, what are you putting them in for? Well, that way the other side of the orchestra could hear, and it's like there's no delay. And he said, no, it's an orchestra. They know how to play together. Mm. Very old school. I don't even put it old school. Very acoustic, very, So, contemporary shows like Kinky Boots, Moulin Rouge, all this, it's a lot more pop oriented. You have to hear what's going on. I think you have to hear what's going on exactly to be able to play with everybody. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, I just remembered. I subbed that Larry Lelly was doing $1 Million Quartet. I don't know if you ever seen it or know about the show.
Yeah.
I had to memorize. I had a couple of lines, and you had to memorize all the music. And it was loud on stage. The band, when Carl Perkins would kick into it was great. But I've just played in so many odd situations, Clayton. I wouldn't say odd. It's just that this is not what I have had to deal with. Not what I had to deal with. Headphones, a few times, but click tracks, no. I remember just going to see Ray play Mamma Mia once. And he was nice enough to he said, I got subs, but if you want to come down and check it out. And Ray's a great player. Ray, super consistent, plays great. And I'm saying, he's got to control the click for the band. He's got to, at times you don't play. See, if I'm I feel sometimes like if I have a click, it's, I did a weird show. Okay, remind me, Come Fly Away. After this, it's the story, the Sinatra thing. I just saw what Ray was doing. And also, he's got the most, not to put him above anybody else, but he's got a really consistent rim shot, backbeat. Not that any of the other drummers you talk to don't, except me. I'm looking and I'm saying, he's turning on and off the click track. Every backbeat's got to be a rim shot, a nice solid
really?
thing. And yeah, but Ray's got the technique. That's what I remember. I just remember there's too many variables here for me to learn it. I think I had the music and I was like, I know the tunes. It's not like that, but it's, luckily something else probably came up at that point. I don't even remember when I looked at him, saw him play, but it's been years, Anyway, he had me sub at the new Miss Saigon, which was fun and wacky at the same time. That was wild. Because I took a picture of the drum set, the setup, and it was like people are looking at us like, what the fuck is that? It's just like drums, taiko, extra set of hi-hats with Chinese symbols on them. So you're getting that clang, orchestra bells, tempo blocks. Let's see, that was on one side. Behind you, it was a full set of crotales, a xylophone, some, then you had to move to the percussion chair to play walk down and play some chimes and marimba, very simple marimba. Don't get me wrong, but you still had to play it right. That was a lot of fun. Ray's always been a sweetheart to me and very, that's great that he just and the drums were he got his Pearl set or the Pearl set there. It's just it was like you didn't have to exactly play what he played for fills and stuff. Although I tried to, but I can't get out of my own ego sometimes. It's horrible. But it was great. It was great. What was the other one?
Come Fly Away.
Come Fly Away. Sinatra. The band is all these Sinatra veterans or bassy people.
Wow.
Jay Anderson was playing bass, who is great. Russ Kassoff was the leader. Jim Ciccirillo, I think, playing guitar. All great players with long histories of this music. There's a click in this show. There was a click that I think Russ Kassoff did to Sinatra's vocals. So it's that only the rhythm section is hearing. The horns don't have that. They're not listening to me playing to a click. I'm playing. I had to sort of figure out, what's happening right in this section where the click gets a little Is it moving around a little bit? It's going with the vocals, but am I just going to play? It was a great experience. It was a lot of fun just playing with these people. But it was that was strange. There's a click experience that I had that was not quite like your regular click, a normal click.
Was the click moved in tempo?
Yeah.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure if you put a click to the Sinatra tunes, it was as near as perfect as it probably could get. But for whatever reason, they put a click. One tune, they did a version of Take 5. Don't ask me why Take 5 was in the show, but they did Take 5. And that was without a click. And that was the hardest tune for me to play. Because I was so used to playing with the click that it was weird for me. It was weird. It was great. The band sounded great. I mean, it was a small group, but so it was like maybe more exposed. And you got a drum solo, and plus I'm playing a drum solo.
Wow.
Yeah, like Take 5. I mean, not exactly I don't think you're playing the Morello solo,
right?
Or anything like that. But so that was I'm not a click person. I'm not, the avionics and clicks and quantum mechanics and stuff like that. I'm not,
I hear you.
When I first started hearing clicks on Broadway or of clicks, I mean, take it with a grain of salt. My comment about myself always, but who am I? I heard someone say, then there's no argument with the choreographer or something slower or faster. It's always this. I remember doing a summer stock tour when I was 19 of No No Nanette, an old musical, old Broadway musical. It was one of the new revivals in the 70s that all of a sudden was a big hit because it was, from the 1920s. I don't know. The lead comes over to one of the pianos. It was 2 pianos and percussion. That was the tour that we did. She comes over to the leader and says, "Oh, that tempo was too fast. You have to slow it down a little bit." And he's like, "Okay, She walks away and he turns to me and says, "Don't do anything differently." I said, "Okay." We play the tune again. She comes over and says, "Oh, that was great." And he smiles at her and he turns to me and says, "You see?" So, okay, jumping in time 40 years, 30 years, whatever. Clicks start happening. And it's like, yes, it makes it more right and more dependable time-wise. But to me, and who am I, that's what Broadway is. It's the conductor interacting with the orchestra, interacting with the stage. So is it Broadway? Yeah, it's Broadway, but it's not the classic Broadway. And things change. Things change. On pop shows, yes, it makes sense for there to be that lock-it. I never heard, for example, speaking of the Grand Rabbi, Warren Oates, I never heard the show we did. But the band, they must have been grooving, and I don't think they had a click back in the early 80s. They could have. I don't know. But I mean, I imagine, bands, you just said the drummer and the rhythm section were trusted and played. Not that you're not trusted now, but clicks have become so ubiquitous, rather than this is what it feels like. This is what it's supposed to feel like. It's become ubiquitous. It's become quotidian. I love the word. It's like, to think that it's not going to be there is like, what? There's no click? How is that possible? How can you do it without a click? More things are on the click or quantized or whatever. And it's like people are used to that. It's not and conductors are used to that. And the feeling is that, if ABC, A through Z has done this, or A through W, then if we're X, we have to do that because that's what everyone's used to. It's not, unless you're going to a really, I was a little surprised at Come From Away that there was a click track. But it's you kind of play with the click. It's kind of interesting that it was movable, and I'll use that lightly in the sense that, at times it was like, there's certain Sinatra tunes where all of a sudden, like you might slow down, and it just, but it was swinging, Clayton. Believe me, I had a ball playing it, but it was. It was, once I realized I could ignore it and just use it as a kind of like a signpost.
Yes.
I'm no Vinnie Colaiuta or anybody else like that who's, Weckl or, they have innate time, but they can, make a click track sound invisible, like it's not really there, but they're playing the time so well. It's just a different thing. Old Broadway was more that, that liaison period, or the period between opera, it was like the people's opera, the stage productions,
Interesting.
And it's contemporary music was still jazz, or big band or swing, up till when rock came, when hair and all that it's a completely different animal, Godspell, all those things are,
There wasn't any click track back in Godspell and all that stuff, right?
No, but there could have been. I don't know if there wasn't the new one that Shannon played, who I don't really know. And I'm not saying it in the disparaging way. Right. I'm just saying I would be surprised if the new Evita, or I don't know, did Evita have click?
No, it didn't.
Okay, that's great. That's interesting, I should say. That's interesting.
Did Hello Dolly have a click?
No.
See, yeah, things can.
Yeah, but that's an old school show.
Yeah,
the conductor was expecting the band to play, and it was like, just what Buddy played was so simple, but so perfect, just as a backdrop to what was going on, but some things were like, I had to like, what? Really? That's great, but I would never think of doing a Purdy shuffle in this tune. But it was subtle. And I'm listening, I'm saying, is that what he think he's doing, man? Is that something?
All right, so let me fast forward to 2019. You did Kiss Me, Kate.
Yes, again, a revival of it. Yeah. That was
there a click track on that?
No.
So
no. And also at roundabout at Studio 54, the orchestra is set up on two different sides of the theater in the boxes. Yeah. So I think I had the Avion, believe it or not, just a speaker. I don't remember if I had an earbud or not. And I could hear the horns from the other side, and I just played with them that way. The original Kiss Me, Kate was done in the theater where Moulin Rouge is, and the band was set up like a regular, pit. And that was, you could hear everything. There was definitely no speakers in that. There was definitely no speakers.
One other thing I'd like to ask you.
Yes.
Going from
only one?
Going from the 70s till today, seeing how the pits were actually Broadway pits and the sound would go out.
Yeah.
Everything being mic'd. Yeah. To then going into drum booths and having everyone being separate. You saw the evolution of all that. Must have been interesting to say, all right, your show now, you're going to be in a drum booth. Were you like, what? What do you mean I'm going to be in the drum booth? Why can't I be with the rest of the orchestra? Did you see that, coming, or were you just...
Well, with me, it was more, putting, panels around me. I wasn't necessarily in a dedicated booth in the shows that I've done. Not like... once again, I'll just go back to Ray doing Mamma Mia. That was like the first time I saw a booth He was in a booth, doors and, the whole thing. I wasn't hired for those shows. I through the grace of the powers that be, and I mean mostly contractors, I'm not talking about a higher power. I just, whatever I've done was like, that was not the genre. I am not the person to talk about in any intelligent sort of way about drum booths or the separation that much. I don't mean that. I mean, the question is intelligent. What I'm saying is my experience
right.
was never like that. I mean, at Cats, I remember, was the first time I was in a show where the orchestra was on stage behind the scenery. But we were in an open, floor, and the trumpet, most of the band was on the floor. It was stage, whatever that part of stage is, stage left, stage right, the right side of the stage. I've only been doing Broadway for 50 years. I still don't know what stage left and stage right is. So there, and up top were 3 trumpets and 2 trombones and a vocal booth, for backup singers up top. So, but nothing was enclosed. Nothing was enclosed. It was live sound. I must admit, when I saw the show once, because I was interested in seeing what it was like the first year that it was done, and was it then, or I might have heard it. The first time I heard it, the sound was pretty good. You could hear everything. The second time, it sounded like synthesizers and drums and the occasional solo instrument. There's the oboe, there's the trumpet, the heavy side layer thing or whatever. So the sound people, the producers, the director decide what they want you to hear, I was used to sub it. The producers is an interesting thing. I subbed there for Larry Lely. Larry was doing it when I was there. When I was doing it when he was there. Went to see the show. My wife got tickets for Father's Day. I went with my mother-in-law and her. I went down to the pit, said, hi to, whoever was talking to me. Not everyone's talking to me. And then I went back to the seat. We're like 6, 7 rows back. The overture starts. It sounded like someone was punching you in the face with the music. It was like a Technicolor musical on steroids. The choreographer, who shall remain nameless, Susan Stroman, loves everything to be as loud as possible. And then the dance accents will be louder even. So I remember the show starts with like a, I don't know. I don't know what it was, but it was some subtle choke cymbal stuff. And it's like, can't even hear it. It's just a blast, and it didn't sound, no acoustic sound at all. I heard no acoustic sound at all, with everything coming from the speakers. And that's the way it is. That's the way it is. It's like movies, albums. It's not like it's live in that the band is live, but it's not like what I think of as live sound. I don't know. I mean, last thing, I once saw after 9/11, when the Winter Garden was finally opened again. I remember going there with my wife and daughter, and they're actually going to be doing a concert, the Concertgebouw Wind Ensemble or European Orchestra or something, but it was the wind, oboes and bassoons and stuff. And I could hear them on stage, just they were playing through something. And it's like, this is nice. The acoustic sound, you really have to listen. Then the sound man turned the microphones on. And it was like, I don't want to listen to an oboe or a bassoon through a speaker because it sounds like an oboe or bassoon through a speaker. I like a smaller, more intimate thing, but that's just me, So I've always, with sound people, I've always like, God bless them, they have to work, but it's like, I've done things with singers where it's like, could you turn the monitor down? And it was still loud. Could you just turn this monitor off? I can hear the singer perfectly well from where I'm sitting or through other monitors. I do not need this monitor at 9, and you won't put it down. So just turn it off. I can get curmudgeonly, sometimes.
Get off my lawn.
I'm not working a lot these days, so it's great. It's working out all the way around.
Well, after 50 years of working many, many shows, it's pretty impressive, man. You've done so much.
Yeah.
Over those decades, did you ever get endorsements from drum companies?
This is going to be short. No.
Really? It's interesting.
I never pursued any.
Okay.
I like Pearl. I like GMS when I played them. I like DW, except for their hardware. I think their hardware
it's too heavy.
It's an abomination. It's just like it's like I hurt myself trying to untighten and move things.
I don't know who thought of that, man.
The drums are great. The drums are great. I have I have no problem with most drums, except maybe Kent or Zimgar. I mean, my first set of drums was Zimgar set.
Sears.
Wow, orange sparkle. But so I never pursued any. Clayton, I'm like, this is going to be a short section, just like talking about the history of click tracks on Broadway. I'm sorry. You know what? Make up something. He was a North endorser. Remember North?
Yeah, North drums. Yes.
He used North exclusively until they went out of business, and then it devastated him, and he could not find another company with that North sound.
That's why he quit Cats. Yeah, I look back.
They couldn't fit the drums. They couldn't fit the drums in the pit.
I do remember looking at Modern Drummer and seeing those drums. It was like, what?
Oh yeah, man, those are wild. Man. I knew some people who had them. And
really?
Yeah, I guess the sound goes out, but doesn't the sound go out normally anyway? I mean, it's a great gimmick. It looks great.
I know.
Did Cobham ever have them?
I don't know.
I know he used the octaton, the tom, the camera stuff and all that shit.
I wonder how you pack up those North drums. I mean, did they have like cases that were like?
Yeah, I mean, they look like giant mushrooms. I mean, like like the cornucopias. You can put your holiday turkey in it too while you're waiting with freezer packs. No, I don't. I don't know. I have no endorsements. I have no life. What else? Where we going?
And you are retired now?
I am retired. As I started collecting my pension about a year ago, 2019, late 2019, and then the proverbial shit hit the fan in March 2020. I was playing a bit in the beginning of 2020, and the end of 2019, I was sort of I won't get into it. It was not important, but I was doing some stuff, and then the thing happened. The thing happened, and
if there was a third revival of Cats, and they're like, Paul, I want you to play it, would you do it?
Well, first of all, Paul wouldn't do it. I'm pretty sure he wouldn't do it. No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think my days of watching someone wave their hands in front of me are over. Maybe. I don't know. I would never say never, but
it'll run for another 13 years, but I want you to play all 13.
Well, if the pension stays okay, then I really don't have to worry about it. I really shouldn't worry about it. I was fortunate the time when I don't want to get into the pension discussion because that could open up a can of worms, but I'm fortunate. I've got what I've got. Very, very fortunate, very grateful for it.
I want to be like you because I'm ready to retire. Actually, I'm not really ready, but I'm ready to move to another level, just like you. I will get there.
I don't know. You've got a lot of fingers and a lot of pies, Clayton, that all seem very intelligent and very, very good to do. And I, other than playing, I just say it's playing has been great in some ways. Playing has been, a mixed blessing in other ways for me. When I stop and look back and I think, wow, I've been doing this since I was like 18, doing shows. And before that, I was playing and I was having fun. Then school. Was I having fun at school? I don't remember. I just kind of all of a sudden, it's like I'm 67. It's like, wow.
Hey man, you've done, I've only been doing this 21 years. You've been doing it 50. I got 30 more years to.
Yeah.
I don't have 30 more years, man. Well, that I'd be 80, 85. I'm not doing it.
Well, look at Roy. Look at Roy Haynes, man. He's 94. Yeah. He's still playing, but he's Roy Haynes too,
exactly.
Man.
I'm just Clayton Craddock.
Last story. This is fine. You can edit it. Brian Brake. I subbed for him at The Boy from Oz, which was Hugh Jackman story, a solo act about Peter, the songwriter. Oh my God, Peter, who's married to Liza Minnelli.
Peter Allen,
thank you. So Brian asked me to sub. And I don't remember the bass player. Dan McMillan was playing percussion. Brian's kit was a 5-piece kit. He had a wood block. He had 2 18s, I think like a K, and an 18 Sabian that was like not a pristine model cymbal. And he said, well, I got to crack it. It sounds fine. I don't need to, put a good cymbal in here. He just had this small kit. He sounded great. It was such a pleasure seeing. And he said, oh, yeah, at the beginning of the second act, we go on stage and we play with Jackman. I said, you do what? He said, yeah, and there's no music. We kind of just play whatever he asked.
Wow.
So I played a few shows, and I'm sure I got axed after a few shows, but it was a great experience playing the show. And my wife, just as an example of she said, You're playing Boy from Oz tonight for the first time, aren't you? And I said, yeah. You don't seem that nervous. And I said, well, the song is just playing tunes, and the band plays so great. And Brian, it's not that, I shouldn't say it's not that hard, because Brian is Brian and I'm Paul. I'm not Brian, and I don't have the experience Brian has playing so much out of the pit. Just something that many people say, you got to bring, when you play Broadway, it's versions of the music that you're playing. Types of, an example of it. It's not the true music, but you got to know the true music to be able to play the Broadway version. You got to know the real stuff well enough that you can deal with this or whatever and know what that person means and know what it means to the music. It's like to play as much as possible and do as many things as possible is the most important thing.
Paul, thank you very, very much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate the call, and I appreciate your patience in listening to me talk and in allowing me to do this. Really, Clayton. Thank you.
I will see you soon.
Okay.
And enjoy your semi-retirement, because I know you're back playing. And
yeah, it's still
it's hard to stop.
It's like the mafia.
Exactly. All right. I'll talk to you soon.
Take care, Clayton. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Broadway Drumming 101 podcast. Head over to the Broadway Drumming 101 YouTube page, where you'll find unedited conversations that I've had with some of your favorite musicians. On the YouTube page, you're going to find bonus content that I don't feature on my Instagram page or here on the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and click on that little bell at the top so that you'll be notified when a new video is uploaded. Thank you for listening and stay tuned for more.